So I wake up one morning and I start doing some self-reflecting. Start thinking about my life and wondering, am I living life or just cruising through life? And sadly, I realized I was just cruising through life. What can I do to start making changes? And then my brain kind of reminded me about my tragic insecurity. I was really insecure about my height. I'm 5'7" on a good day. And I always wished, growing up, I was 6 inches taller. I felt that would have helped me playing sports, dating, and just being in the business world, negotiating with clients and whatnot. That was my excuse why I couldn't make changes. Some interesting research suggests that nearly 85% of Americans suffer with insecurities, whether it's their body type, their height, their appearance, low self-esteem. What would you say if I told you that my main tragic flaw of being short is what saved me and why I'm here today? My name is Mike Wolo, and I'm a survivor of a horrific accident. My face and head were crushed to under 3 inches wide by 10,000 pounds of granite stone slabs. I was given only a 2% chance of survival. This is not a story of tragedy, but a story of triumph. Back in the fall of 2003, I get a phone call from my childhood friend's brother. I worked for his father as a kitchen home designer, and here and there he had asked me to help out with shipments of granite stone that he'd get in from overseas. Hated doing it. I've told him before that it would be the last time I would do it. Each stone weighed about 1,000 to 1,200 pounds and extremely dangerous. He called me 2 or 3 times, and each time that morning I said, no, I'm done with it. It's not what I do. Call somebody else. About an hour later, his dad gives me a call and asks me one final time politely, Mike, can you help us, please? I caved in and said yes. The container looked like it was pulled out of Boston Harbor. It's dented up, it's rusted, obviously in previous accidents, and I kind of knew that something wasn't going to go well for us that day. We start, and each bundle we started moving, all the floors were buckling and moving around, and we knew this wasn't safe. Out of nowhere, I hear David screaming. I don't know what he's screaming about. Comes running over me, grabs me by my shirt, and screams for me to run. I look up and I realize the bundle of stone is falling right at me. The last thing I remember is looking up and seeing the wall of stone coming right at me. I tried to put my shoulder in it to stop it, but there was no stopping 10,000 pounds of stone coming at you at full force. I remember nothing at that point. So I was med-flighted to a level 1 trauma center in Boston. I'm in a coma. The doctors only gave me a 2% chance of living. And had suggested at that time, at least have my brothers go in there and say their goodbyes. Well, what do you know, at that very moment, I wake up. My oldest brother is at my right shoulder. He turns to the nurse and says, hey, I think he's awake. Mike, squeeze my hand once for yes, 2 for no, if you understand what I'm saying. At that point, I sat there squeezing his hand as hard as possible. I remember the entire room filled up, and must have had about 8 surgeons in there in my family. There's some celebration, and I'm confused. I don't know what's going on, except for I'm in the hospital, and I'm in an accident, but I don't know how bad it really was. So at that point, lights go out, a long road of recovering from there. So now I go through several surgeries. I'm stuck in a bed. They put me in an induced coma for a few days because I kept on trying to escape from the bed. My family also had notes on the front door of my room. Don't let Mike see himself in the mirror. My family's in there visiting, and they all stepped out. And they're in the hallway talking to one of the surgeons. And they started asking, well, can Mike do everything he used to do? Mike was really active. You know, Mike skied and snowmobiled and hiked. And at that point, the doctor said no. A lot of things that Mike used to do, he's not gonna be able to ever do again. You know, expect Mike to be here for about 6 months, and expect him probably in a rehab hospital for another 6 months. Now, I can overhear this. I can't even explain to you what's going through my mind. Everybody enters the room now. I did not let them know what I just heard. And I just kept it to myself and tried to just trudge along. Another day goes by, and a nurse comes in. He's like, hey, I'm here to give you a shave. He Goes to shave my right side, and it was so tender. And I think he could read with my eyes, we've had enough here. So he apologized and said, okay, we're all set here. Well, you look great. Here, look, and he hands me a mirror. Look how wonderful you look. And meanwhile, I start looking in the mirror. I don't recognize the face that's looking back at me. The darkest moment of my life was looking in that mirror. My head now is the size of a beach ball, misshapen, not symmetrical. My left eye, I found out, had burst out of my skull and was placed back in there. My right eye, all the blood vessels had blown up and was completely red. The technique was to go in through my mouth and reconstruct and place screws throughout my entire face. I took it in for a solid minute or so and said to myself, well, life's over. What woman's gonna want to go near me? Children are gonna run away from me. And I started to weep. And I realized, no, I turn around and I got my mother crying. My mother, who raised 5 boys, was one of the strongest women you can ever imagine. And I felt terrible that I got her crying. Enough with the self-pity, I said to myself. That very moment I decided I am getting out of this hospital sooner than 6 months. I am doing everything I can, starting now, to get myself out of here. Getting to my 2nd week there, I got to the point now, all my surgery is complete and I've healed so well that there's nothing more for me to be there for. I get to the rehab hospital, and I thought, this is wonderful. This was my goal. My first milestone to prove the doctors wrong. I wasn't going to be in that place for 6 months. So I began the journey there of rehabilitation. I'm getting a steady flow of family and friends visiting and a wonderful support system. And by my 15th day, I was released, sent back home. So 32 days later, post-accident, I am back home. And to me, that was the biggest, most unbelievable feeling. What I didn't realize is my long journey now of not just the physical battle, but now the mental battle. Time is moving on. And I found it very difficult for me to want to leave my own property. I returned back to work as a kitchen home designer and realized that I was making errors. I didn't realize I suffered a traumatic brain injury. Yes, at the rehab hospital, they pointed it out, but me being me, we're tough here in Boston. I'm indestructible. I don't have a brain injury. I just can't talk because I have no mouth. I had to relearn just simple thought process. I had to relearn how to smile again. I had to learn many things of just being a social person again, without feeling all eyes on me, looking at the freak. That took some time. Slowly I started coming back into my own, started doing lots of walking and hiking again. 3 months post-accident, I get the opportunity to go up to Maine, check off snowmobiling. Friends took me up and I spent a week doing it and it was amazing. Another one for the list. Surely, camping came along, and then riding motorcycles and ATVs again. All these things that the doctor said I could not do. And then finally, 8 years post-accident, I'm my new me. I'm happy with myself. I've accepted my new face. I've gotten over agoraphobia and anxiety and depression. The way I did it is I took a new job that required me to travel 1,500 to 2,000 miles each week and creating metal protection walls inside my brain. Started doing physical activity and started jogging and working out. And I run into one of my friends and he says, hey, you look great. Why don't you come work out with the semi-pro football team that just moved into town? Work out with them, you'll get in wonderful shape. These guys were, in their 20s. And at this point, I'm 40 years old. By the 4th week, one of the coaches comes over to me and says, okay, enough of this. Go get some pads. Our first game's Saturday, you're dressing for this game. I thought he was insane. I got 110 titanium screws and 20 plates holding my face together. I had fractured my C1 and my C2 in my neck, and I broke my shoulders. You can help me mentor these kids. You could be the backup to the backup to the backup. And I said, Coach, you're right. That is the right thing to do. 2 hours before that first game, Coach calls me over and asks me, you think you can help out on the defensive line today? I said, yeah, Coach. I actually played defensive tackle all through high school. He kind of looked at me like I was insane. He said, okay, well, we'll see how it goes for a couple series. I haven't had any type of physical activity in 22 years now. This was the real deal. I get on the field and I do the kickoff, and I notice a tremendous difference between high school and semi-pro football. The ground is shaking, these guys are gigantic, and I'm running down there. Somebody hits me in the shoulder and I go flying 20 feet. I roll up on my feet and I get back in and I help out in that tackle, and I thought, wow, that was exhilarating. That was amazing. Next thing you know, I call huddle. Lined up against the football, offensive tackle looks at me and he's wondering, what are you doing here? Are you the water boy? He's 6 foot 2 inches tall. He's 360 pounds. The ball gets hiked, and would you know it, I ran right by him, and I go chasing the quarterback out of the pocket. This goes on for 3 or 4 straight series. And then they bring in another player. This looked like Terry Cruz's twin brother, who's talking smack, calling me Tiny, saying, you ain't getting by me, Tiny. Tiny got by him and kept on getting by him the whole half. We're in the locker room, and the coach yells out, where's my little guy? I'm like, I'm right over here, coach. And he's like, congrats, Wolo. That position's yours. And I end up playing 2 full seasons and retired on my 43rd birthday. So just imagine one day you were self-reflecting about your life and wondering, are you living it or not? To the next day getting your head crushed by 10,000 pounds of granite. To another day meeting the surgeon that reconstructed you to find out that you were actually the perfect height, and that the thing that you were most insecure about your entire life, being short, is what actually saved your life, because if you were any taller, you were decapitated, and any shorter, your brains are going to be demolished. You can overcome your own insecurities. You might only have a 2% chance, but you take that chance and live life to its fullest.